Right.
And you mentioned on when we were messaging about the show that something about astrological remediation. So,
Yes.
what is astrological remediation, and could we use it for our hypothetical example of the dogs who tore up the couch? Could we use astrological remediation to help remediate whatever's going on with those animals?
Interesting. Good question. I didn't expect that. So, what astrological remediation is it's the concept of using the astrological chart to maybe diagnose or figure out certain problems that are happening in, I guess you'd say, someone's energy body or their astral body. And then remediation would be trying to fix that problem or remedy the problem that you find in the chart. So I guess if we're going to apply this to a case of unruly dogs, and we knew that one of them was having something going on in their chart that might contribute to that kind of behavior, I suppose there'd be ways to remediate. Are your listeners aware of things like transits and aspects?
Yeah, well, I think so. I mean, it depends on how new, whether their astrological literacy, the degree to which their astrological literacy has yet to express itself.
Okay.
Assume that they know the 12 signs and that they know what the concept of a transit is.
Okay. So an example here would be if we looked into one of the dog's charts and we found out that the dog had a transit from Mars to their natal Mars, which for listeners who don't know what that means, that would mean that the moving planet of Mars, where it is right now, is somehow inciting or exciting that dog's kind of passion center, or the position of Mars as it was when they were born. And so what we know as astrologers is if somebody has Mars come up to their Mars, whether it be an animal or a dog, that they might feel more rowdy than on other days or more riled up. Would you say that that's how you've experienced a Mars transit in general?
Well, I'm trying to think back to when we had that 8-month transit of Mars in Virgo. And, Virgo isn't the most riled. I mean, Virgo is anything but riled up. I did do a lot of writing and a lot of astrological analysis. So, and, Mars in Virgo excels at analysis. So I did a lot of good writing. So I guess in a way.
Well, and I think I remember when Mars was in Virgo, I got really riled up about technical details. Like I was doing a lot of editing, if I remember, and getting kind of passionate about it.
Yeah, I was passionate about editing my astrology articles.
Yeah, I don't know if I was passionate in the best way because I don't have any Earth in my chart, so I was probably begrudgingly doing it. But back to the case of the dog, what astrological remediation would say is that if the problem was that the dog was getting overly heated up, or maybe it was being too Martian, like it was tearing up a couch, then the way to remediate that there'd be a lot of ways. One would be to cool off the dog, like give it a fan or take it outside in the cold air, because we would maybe think of it as like a heat problem. Or trying to think of other ways to remediate with a dog hasn't been my specialty. I mean, I guess getting the dog out for a really long walk would be a great way to move its energy around. And maybe the case here is that the dog was pent up and it was in a house and it was riled up by the planets also. So with remediation, it can take on a number of forms. One would be cooling off the actual temperature of the dog, but another would be to give that energy an outlet, like walking or running. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit like medical astrology, but on an energetic level.
Interesting. Well, I mean, medical astrology could be said to be looking at the chart to see how it's manifesting in the physical body. And so, remediation, one form of remediation could be looking into a medical problem and then fixing it. But in this case, we're looking at a behavioral issue, which is the dog is kind of acting in a way that we don't want because it's being destructive. And in that way, it's kind of like, it's like channeling one's energy. I mean, really simply. Have you ever heard of symbolic substitution?
I think so. Like kind of like sublimination or something like that.
Huh. Interesting. I've never heard that word for it, but I can see where that might be a compatible concept because I learned this concept of symbolic substitution when I was going to Kepler College for Astrological Arts and Sciences. And I remember sitting in class and hearing the concept, and it just changed my world. I was like, whoa. It changed astrology for me, because what the concept is that you take something in the chart that's, maybe problematic, and then you substitute kind of how it's expressing itself with some other activity or behavior that honors the symbology of that planet.
So like if you, I had a friend who was very passionate about the criminality of the large banks. And he said to me that his girlfriend's mom was like, "Oh, that's just because you have issues with your dad." And because she was kind of denying that the banks were a bunch of giant criminals. And I said to my friend, I said, well, she may have a point, and maybe that is, but is it that you're only into this because if your dad was a tyrant, or is it that your dad was a tyrant, therefore you are particularly wired up to detect tyranny, so you are kind of working out your dad issues through being passionate about the tyranny of the large banks. But that doesn't. I said to him that doesn't mean you're wrong, though. So you're kind of like playing it out. I do think about this a lot. I mean, my friend's a good example there, but even with myself, like, are the political and social issues I'm attracted to, is that because they're objectively the most important issues, or is it because there's some part of my psychology that kind of plays out?
Well, and I mean, I think that to speak from that astrologically, it's almost like the chart could be seen as a map of our receptors. Like some people say, oh, my mom was really clean, that's why I'm really clean. But another person could say, well, my mom was really clean, and so I've rebelled against that by just being really dirty.
Right.
And what we would say is the chart shows kind of how we receive our experience and then filter that information. And so I guess symbolic substitution would be like, let's say your friend who is robbing the banks, maybe...
Well, he didn't rob a bank. He was just like in Occupy and stuff.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But I was saying like if he had like a severe Saturn or something, so constantly felt oppressed or blocked, or you know what I mean, and that could represent as a father issue also, because maybe the authority figure when he's young is the father or whatever. But like a symbolic substitution for something like that would be something where that maybe we would make a contrived constriction, but something that was positive.
Right.
Yes, so that the person could kind of live out their need to feel constricted, but also we could try to make something good happen in the life through that natural tendency.
Right. So like somebody who, if rather than be addicted to alcohol, maybe they really get into doing like shamanic ayahuasca type stuff, but in a safe, in a very safe way.
And that's a great example. That would be like a Neptune remediation.
Yeah.
A symbolic substitution for Neptune. A lot of times you can substitute spirituality in general for Neptune problems.
Right.
Like in Alcoholics Anonymous, they do that naturally with giving the problem up to a higher power, stuff like that. And that's very good. You're getting it.
Yeah, no, it makes total. When you said symbolic substitution, that was what I